Good evening and welcome to everyone. We are very excited to be here for this opportunity to hear from our four candidates. And we're going to get right to the purpose of this. We want to ask as many questions as possible. We have given each of our four candidates the opportunity to effectively say hello themselves by an opening statement of 1 minute. And we will begin, and this was determined by a flip of the coin, and the first opening statement will come from Brian Curry.
Good evening. My name is Brian Curry, and I'm running for position 2. I bring 22 years of experience with FedEx to the table. From starting in college at the University of Arkansas loading boxes, working my way into management, and then on to training managers, and then ultimately to my role as a technical operations advisor today. I have traveled the world delivering training and conducting implementations, working with people from all sorts of backgrounds on 5 continents. My experience working with budgets, management, communications, and training is a skill set that will be valuable for this board. I also have 2 children in GMSD at Dogwood Elementary, and I look forward to sharing my ideas about our schools with you this evening. Thank you.
The next introductory speech will come from Betsy Landers.
Good evening. My name is Betsy Landers, and it is my honor to chair your school board. I want to take a minute to thank Leadership Germantown Alumni Association for hosting tonight's Candidates Forum. And I want to also recognize the audience in attendance tonight and thank you for your continued interest in GMSD. If we are to move our school district forward, we need your continued commitment and support so that we can move into the future. In this, our 5th year as a district, we have accomplished so much, but there is very much yet to do. It is my hope that you find tonight informative, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Our next opening statement will come from Robin Redisel.
Hello, I'm Robin Raver-Dussel, and I'm running for position 4. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. I graduated from Southern Miss with a master's degree in education. I hold certifications in STEM, gifted ed, and administration as well. For the past 24 years, I've had the privilege of teaching elementary, middle school, and college students. I've trained and evaluated future teachers, and I've worked extensively with curriculum, textbook adoptions, and implementing technology in schools. I've had the opportunity to serve on Germantown Education Commission, the Germantown Arts Alliance, and as a member of Leadership Germantown. I'm running for school board because education is my passion. It's been my mission to inspire and be a role model for all the students I've taught. For years, I've encouraged my own 4 children who are GMSD students and my former students to be strong, brave, and courageous and to step out of their comfort zones to better themselves. As a school board member, I want them to see that I practice what I preach. I'm also running for school board because I'm a servant leader that wishes to serve the community in which I live. Thank you very much.
And our final opening statement is from Angela Mitchell. Yes, Angela, did you not hear me?
Oh, yes, sir. Angela Griffith.
I'm sorry, forgive me, Angela Griffith, I apologize.
No
Angela
problem.
Griffith, thank you, I apologize.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all again for taking the time to be here and expressing your interest in not only this campaign season, but also our school district. My name is Angela Griffith. I was born and raised in Germantown, Tennessee. I attended Riverdale Elementary School and Germantown High School. I have an intrinsic pride in this community for a lot of reasons. I'm also a vested stakeholder as a parent of 2 GMSD students. I definitely know where we have been. I understand fully the history that has gotten us to where we are today, and I'm so proud of our locally run schools that we fought so hard to get. In business, I personally manage not only people, but I participate in managing large budgets, multi-million-dollar budgets, and negotiate contracts on behalf of my company's largest customer. In this case, our customer is the city of Germantown and its students' residents. Thank you all again for your time, and I look forward to tonight.
Thank you. We will now begin to move into questions. I do want to thank the people of the City of Germantown who submitted questions for consideration. We had quite a large number of people submitted, and so it shows once again the interest in this race. And as we go through tonight, I'm going to be rotating the order that the questions are received so that each of the candidates have the opportunity to answer in a different place so that we're giving no benefit or advantage to any one particular candidate. Our first question, and it will go first to Angela Griffith, and I do apologize, I got that, Angela. The first question is, what do you believe is the primary work of school boards?
I think a school board collectively have to work together. That is the primary goal to me personally, is to see effective and efficient working. We can't all get together and expect to do the same thing moving forward without being in a common place and have a common goal. So much of what the school board actually does is policy, implementing, and also advocating for it. Also, there is a lot of HR type things that we will have to be faced with, and we will have to discern things that are presented to us. There is also a lot of opportunity for us to deal with the legislators, not only in the local level, which is what I am so passionate about advocating for us at the city and the state level. That is going to be a big part of what we do on this board. There are so many things that are dictated to us, but there are so many needs that we have that need to be met and need to be examined.
Very good. Robin Ruddisell?
As a school board member, I have 3 jobs. I have the job of helping make policies for the district, also planning the stages of growth and curriculum, help with promoting the district out in the public, being a good liaison between the students, the teachers, the parents, and the district. Also promoting that we're excellence always. We have a vision that's excellence always, and it is my, and the mission being to prepare, inspire, and empower students to be lifelong learners and social responsible students. It ties into everything I bring to the table, what we've been doing for years before we were a district and now that we are a district. It's impressive to me that we have grown from stage 0 to now 4 years, and we have seen a lot of growth. And what I pride myself and my teacher friends and my administrators and the school board, and actually community members and parents, we have made it great because of who we are as a district, but as who we are as community members. So advocating at all levels is my position on what a school board member should be.
Betsy Landers?
As a school board member, our primary responsibilities are policy, planning, and promotion. But it all begins with a vision. The school board is charged with creating the vision of how they see the district moving and how we can best accommodate those students we serve. For policy, that is the primary leadership role that the board takes. The school is based on policy. Our superintendent administers the schools through policy, but it's the school board that sets those policies. Planning is just that, planning for the future of our district. But planning is also advocacy. Advocacy not only at the legislature in Nashville, but also before the City of Germantown, our funding body, as well as the county commissioners, who also contribute financially to the district. And lastly, promotion. Being a positive advocate in the community for our school district, speaking up, including the community. It's important that the community is part of the decisions that we make, part of the vision we have for our school district. Policy, planning, promotion. Under Tennessee law, those are the jobs assigned to the school board, things that all of us take very seriously.
Okay. Mr. Curry?
The most important role of the board is to work with communities to improve student achievement. But beyond that, it's up to the board to set the vision for the district. One of those would be to provide a safe learning environment that works for all students. Our district is only as strong as those that are the weakest. Also, the role of the board is to promote, advocate, and not be involved in the day-to-day operations of the schools. And I think that's important that the community understands. I know from talking to people, I hear that different items about what the board's responsible for and what it's not. The board operates at a very high level. The superintendent is in charge of running the day-to-day operations of the district. The board sets the vision. The board works on a vision for the superintendent to execute. It's also important to note that the board is in charge of the business of the district. So looking at budgeting, planning, what's the vision, setting forth the strategic plan, that's all the vision of the district, and it's up to us as board members to have a vision that's executable by the superintendent and the staff.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Brian Curry. Effective school boards establish a clear vision with high expectations for quality teaching and learning that support strong student outcomes. What is your vision for public education in Germantown?
Well, since I just mentioned vision, the board has to set expectations and goals for our district. Where do we want to be? Where are we now? Where are we going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What's the plan? So for the goals to be set, we have to have measurable benchmarks. So when we're setting these goals and we're trying to set our plan for our vision, let's say that we want to achieve higher ACT scores. So if we decide as a board that's where we want to go, then what is our plan? How do we get there? What's our plan as far as looking at best practices from other areas? What do we do to empower our staff and our teachers to get there? What kind of feedback are we getting from them? Coming from the corporate world, I think there's an aspect of quality that we can bring. So quality would be looking at root cause analysis, looking at data, asking questions why, trying to drill down to ultimately to the root cause to figure out where the issues may be and where we're going to go and how we're going to get there. The board, though, I think working collaboratively, again, listening to the teachers, the residents, stakeholders, formulating the plans, and then working towards that vision of how we're going to get to where we're intending to go.
Ms. Landers?
The strategic plan developed by the founding district in 2014 is our guide for how we move forward. The 5 goals and the subsequent indicators within those 5 goals are what map out where we are going as a district. In the next 5 years, we will readjust that with community input, board input, and of course with our wonderful district staff to create the vision for the coming 5 years. But we are guided by the principles within that. As I look out in the landscape of the future for our district, I can identify 3 things that I think are educational priorities facing us as we move forward. Foremost would be teachers. The most important thing in a classroom is a teacher in the front of that room. We want to maintain the goal of being in the top 10% of highest paying districts in the state so that we can attract the best teachers possible for our children. And that includes salaries and benefits, and it happens to be number 2 in our strategic plan. We also need to look at increasing staff positions in special education, as well as expanding transitional opportunities for our high school students and those programs to help them as they integrate back into the community after high school. And lastly, our blended learning, our one-to-one blended learning initiative has been extremely successful. This is our first year to totally have 6th through 12th students with devices, but we need to plan and fund for the future by having the staff to repair the devices, also support staff to help our teachers, as well as to maintain software and cybersecurity for those devices and our students. And as I see the future, those are the leading indicators for improvement in our district.
Ms. Ruttersel?
In thinking about my vision for this district, the first thing that came to mind to me reading the strategic plan was to maximize student potential. And because I am putting kids first in this district. And so if we all have the same mentality, which I think everybody in this room does, that if we work together as a community, my vision is all of us working together, parents, teachers, administrators, school board, maximizing that student potential. A second thing is, adds into it, that was the engagement of the community, but also the staff, the retention of our staff is teachers love Germantown. They want to work here. They want to be in this district. It's a great district. I've been lucky to work here as long as I have for 20 years. But my vision also stems from the here and now and in the future. What are we going to do to make it better? It's already great. What else can we do to make it better? Even if we're great, we can always do other things, change things to make it better, whether it's adding on to school buildings, whether it's providing, instead of club sports, school-sponsored sports, if we could get that. So parents, it would make it easier for parents. And making sure that teacher training and that we're already continuing that too. One other thing is with the blended one-to-one. It's a great program. We've already established it to the middle school. I'd like to see it come to the elementary level too. Thank you.
Ms. Griffith?
Some of the primary important things that I think that we should look at moving forward to the 5-year strategic plan that currently exists. It's a well laid out plan. All well laid out plans need to be followed. But the best part about, if you read the plan, is that this district was so thoughtful, looking ahead in our rush to get up and going, to acknowledge that we are going to have to make some adjustments as we go. It's been a quick 5 years almost. We're at a place where we need to make some adjustments. I like the idea of it overall, and of course having not only the students but the staff be primary focuses of those, that we continue to focus on the maximize student potential. As I go through the plan, I see a lot about testing. I see a lot about scores. I'm very, very, very a very big proponent of a whole student. Emotional and mental well-being is very important, especially in today's time. That is a big part of why I feel that we need to address that moving forward in a greater way. Also, with the retention and development of our existing people, but also trying to get the best quality teachers and staff and everyone that is going to work in our department and our district. That is crucial. We want to be that place where they want to come and work, and we want to maintain that big status that we have of being one of the best places to work. But that comes with having to keep up with the reputation, and maintaining the reputation is work. You have to recognize the opportunities, as I like to call them, to do better and be willing to act on them.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Ms. Griffith. Describe your view of the roles of the school board and the superintendent. And what is the ideal relationship that should exist between these two offices, and how can we ensure that that is what occurs in this district?
The school board and the district, this district, Germantown Municipal School District, is a business. The way I foresee working with the superintendent or director of schools would be simply like a board of directors and a CEO. In the business world, we know that there's a boss, and then there's people, and there are departments that support. As our role as the board members, we will have to adopt policy. We will have to agree to go with what the community wants to do, but ultimately we will have to work together with the head of the company, and the head of the company is the director or superintendent of the schools. And in order to do that, as I said before, I manage people and I work with people, and I can assure you that comes with a lot of different personalities. And once we're all on the same page, and sometimes you're not, you sit across a negotiating table, I do it all the time, knowing that two people on either side want different things. But ultimately, we're all going to get up from that table and have to come up with an agreement. I personally have some experience and training in mediation. And I can tell you, when people really want something, but they realize what they have to do to get it, it's amazing what can come about. I think that dynamic between the person and the board directly is so crucial to foster communication, openness, and most importantly, willingness to work together.
Ms. Rudisell?
As a board member, I think it's crucial to be working closely with the superintendent. Obviously, the current board is doing a great job, but I think what we can do to make it better is to listen to each other and respect each other and make sure that we are role models for our children, particularly on social media and hard topics like that. Decision-making is a hard process, and no one always has the right answer. No one always does the right thing according to everybody in the community. But I feel that being a role model, like Mr. Manuel is, and all the teachers are, and the school board is, and any administrator and any parent is a role model too. And I think working together is hard when you have 5 people, 6 people thinking different ways. So I think the best thing that we can do is build a strong relationship between the 5 of us and with the superintendent, so we can show the community that working together is the only way to solve any problem here, and respecting each other and listening to each other when we're talking. Listen and hear our concerns. Thank you so much.
Mr. Curry?
When I pulled my petition in June, one of the very first meetings I set up was with the superintendent about 2 weeks after pulling my petition. And I felt that it was important to engage in a conversation with the superintendent, for him to know, just to know me and to know who I am, but also for him to know my approach and my style and my intentions for running for the school board. In doing so, I had an opportunity to listen to him and his viewpoints, and was able to get some good information to assist me in getting the bigger picture about the district. As a school board member, we have one employee, and the employee is the superintendent. Having managed hundreds of employees over the years at FedEx, I know that the approach with managing employees is you can go one of 2 ways. You can adopt a dictatorial style, or you can adopt a collaborative style. I personally like to operate in a collaborative style because, again, at the end of the day, the superintendent has to execute the vision that the board sets forth. So, again, having that relationship to where he knows that I, as a board member, am coming from a good place, and as a board, the 5 of us on the board have to present a unified front. He can't be receiving mixed messages from the board. So the board has to be unified, go to the superintendent with the message and the vision that we want executed, and then we have to count on him and support him as board members in order for this vision and in whatever policies or procedures that we would like to have taken place executed by the superintendent.
Ms. Landers?
The relationship between the board and the superintendent is the most important relationship that I can come to mind in running a school system. Because without a good relationship between the board and the superintendent, neither can be truly effective. But what does it take to have a good relationship? The first thing that comes to mind is mutual professional respect, that we each respect each other's given duties and responsibilities. As a board, we set policy. We develop the strategic plan along with the superintendent, staff, and the community. But it's up to the superintendent to administer the schools. We simply work to make sure the schools are run well. It is a collaborative relationship, and communication is definitely the key, but two-way communication. It's important that not only does the superintendent communicate with each of the board members, but that each of the board members communicate with the superintendent. So by keeping an open line of communication, you can assure that your relationship is off to a good start. Respect, communication. Those are the keys, in my mind, to a good relationship between the superintendent and the Board of Education.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Ms. Landers. Effective school boards exercise their power to serve students through establishing and reviewing its policy structure. What policy initiative would you pursue to transform GMSD's vision into reality?
Interesting question. Quite a few come to mind as we move forward to be effective. One of the things we're looking at currently that's rather beyond policy, but something the new school board will be confronting, is our current overcrowding of schools. It is a reality. It's a reality that has been identified since 2014 and one we're currently dealing with. So moving forward, that's going to be one of the number one jobs for the incoming school board, is to deal with not only a brand new school opening, but an expansion to our middle school so that we can accommodate our growing numbers of middle school students. In addition to that is looking to the future, expanding our academic offerings within our school system is another thing that I see as important. We'll be moving forward, hopefully, within the next year to establishing a health sciences academy for our students at the high school. You will be hearing more about that in the coming months as we finalize the work that we're doing across the medical community within our community so that we can offer our high school students an extraordinary opportunity in the health sciences field.
Mr. Curry?
One of the biggest issues facing this district right now for our parents, our teachers, and our students is the overcrowding. So the board coming up is going to have to make some very difficult decisions about how we handle issues such as transfers going forward. The new elementary school, Forest Hill Elementary, will resolve the crowding situation at the elementary level, but it does nothing for what's going on at Houston Middle. And so as we go forward as a board, the board's going to have to make very difficult decisions in regards to who's accepted and just the overall picture of people coming into the district. Riverdale also has the same issues with crowding in their area. That's probably at the top of the list of issues that have to be addressed. From talking to hundreds of parents as I've campaigned, it's almost to a person. The concern is the crowding of our schools and what are we going to do to address it as we go forward. So I think as a board, given that we're going to have some capacity at the elementary level, I think we need to take a look as soon as possible at what are we doing at the elementary level and then transitioning on to the middle school level to make sure that we're being fair to our parents, teachers, and our students.
Ms. Rudisell?
Like Brian said earlier, I think it's very important for us to take a step out of our comfort zone, and when we have a question, go straight to the source. And so I felt the need a few weeks back to go to Jason Manuel with that relationship building, and I asked him these hard questions about how are we going to deal with it. I don't want to get caught in a situation talking to the public and not knowing what I was talking about. And Mr. Manuel, I work at Houston Middle. I'm there every single day for 6 years, and I notice what we need, and I've talked to the teachers and the administrators, and one of the things that he told me is starting in January after the new school is already started being built, is that we are talking about adding a wing out to where the bus lane is, if you know where that is, and adding a new gym because we need a gym for the kids. We also need more classrooms, obviously, so that is already in the works. I also asked about the transfers, and I said I was concerned about all these transfers. We pay taxes to live here, and what are we going to do? And he assured me also that they were working on taking the transfer numbers down to a minimum, very small minimum, and I trust that he will follow what he's told me. What I'd like to see also is some more trade classes in the high school. I have a high school student, and she's doing the academic route, but there's some kids that aren't, and they need those classes. And also for the special ed kids, I know we're working on it, but we could do better to help them get future employment when they leave the high school. So those are the things I would like in my vision and to reality. Thank you.
Ms. Griffith?
To the point of, I hear the term constantly on the campaign trail, overcrowding. I like to call it the success of, kind of the growing pains of our success, but burden indeed. Burden on the existing students and families, and burden on the existing teachers and administrators that are having to work outside of the capacity that we wish that we were working within. I was privileged to listen to the superintendent speak last week about one of the potential projects coming up. As we've heard from some answers here just now, there are definitely capacity issues currently. Part of what I'm talking about moving forward and continuing to have a long-range strategic plan and financial plan, because not only do we have these wonderful schools, but most of them are very, very old. And it's like having an old house. You know, you're always having to fix something. And so there's a lot of financial investment that goes into the upkeep and the maintenance in these old facilities. Not only do we need to take care of those facilities, but as we're building this new beautiful state-of-the-art facility for the incoming elementary school at Forest Hill, we also have the opportunity that we learned about, or I did personally last week, about the expansion with the potential 8 classrooms at Houston Middle School and the gym. I think that's very important. A lot of people want to know, we're excellent, we want to be excellent, but our facilities aren't necessarily excellent, and our capacity is causing our children and our educators to have to work within conditions that aren't ideal. So back to the long-term financial plan is something that I feel like is utmost important and should take absolute priority, and that is getting the funding and the finances that we need to not only make these adjustments and make these betterments to our facilities, but help allow the students to not be so burdened by the overcrowding.
Thank you. Ms. Griffith, we'll take the first shot at the next question. If you believe student achievement to be a primary focus of the district and the GMSD board, what can you do as a board member to ensure excellence in student achievement is attained?
One of the things about our district that I really am proud of is kind of the work-based learning. I think that not only working in tandem with learning actually at an experience level, getting to have a hands-on kind of approach of learning is really important for some people, because as we all know, not everyone learns the same. Having a lot of technology is a beautiful thing as we move into the 21st century classrooms, and we all know that's where we're going. It's one of our primary focuses of our strategic plan. That said, there are a lot of students in our system that need extra, and that there are a lot of opportunities where we can provide that, whether it be in the special education realm or whether it be in the vocational realm. I'm very much also a big proponent of trade and getting people ready for after high school when college is not their path or choice. That is very important as we move in today's time. As we all know, that's not the way everyone is headed, and we have to take into consideration, again, I continue to go back to this, the whole student, preparing them for life. We talk about that's a big part of what we're trying to do in our district, is prepare them to be good citizens and productive people in society. So much of that starts now and starts early. And we have to offer up these things and find these tools to help them so that they will be ready and prepared as they go out into the world and represent the legacy of our district and where they've come from.
Ms. Rudisell?
Student achievement weighs heavy on my heart because of the path I've taken in life. One thing that we're doing great at in this district is we have the high achieving students. We have had them for over 20 years that I've been teaching here. We have the achievement scores, we have the ACT scores, but my heart weighs heavy on the achievement of the kids that are in the middle, or maybe, and we do a real good job meeting the needs of the lower RTI Tier 2 and Tier 3 kids. I think the average student is where we as a district, we're working toward excellence, and every teacher in this district is working so hard trying to reach every single child. And to have high achievement, we're not a number here in this district. Test scores are not everything. And we need to remember as a district that the whole child starts from August all the way to May, and we need to focus on what's going on in the classroom instead of what's going on in April. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, the next one is Mr. Curry.
One of the things that troubles me is that we tend to gauge student success solely on test scores. And some students just aren't really good at taking tests. That doesn't mean that they're not achievers. That doesn't mean that they're not going to succeed in life. But we can't base everything on how a student performs on a test. And so I think the concept of trying to teach the whole student and have them ready to go out into the real world when they walk out the doors of Houston High School, I think that's really what we should be striving for. And if they're meant to go on to college, that's great. Let's have them prepared to go on to college. If they're meant to go into trades because their skill set is better to go into a trade, then by all means, let's have them ready to go for that. But I do think that when we narrow student achievement to, hey, here's how you did on the ACT, or here's your GPA, I think we're really being unfair to students because, again, we're taking into account there's a lot of different factors, and we don't want students to feel marginalized if they're not at a certain test score level or a certain GPA. So I think the district really has to promote and foster an environment where all students are valued, that no matter how you do, we will try to get you ready to go to succeed in the real world, and really make sure that we're trending in that direction as a district.
Ms. Landers?
To increase student achievement, the primary thing we need to look at is the teacher in the classroom. We need to make sure we're recruiting, we're offering the professional development, and we're working to retain the best teachers, exemplary teachers for our students. That's the number one factor to student achievement. Beyond that, we need to look at classroom size. The community is concerned about optimal classroom size, as is the Board of Education. It is something that is always at the forefront of our mind. It is the reason Forest Hill will open in the next school year, and it is the reason that the addition to Germantown Middle School is moving forward. We also need to look at expanding offerings, not just academically, but offerings for the whole child. We're blessed in this community. We have amazing choirs and bands. We have a television station in our high school. So many things that we do from elementary through high school. This is an important part of its student achievement, is addressing the needs of the whole child. And finally, something that we do here that is remarkable is offer all of our students community involvement opportunities, a way to learn to give back. Part of what we want to do is see them achieve, but we also want them to see them become socially responsible citizens.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Ms. Landers. School boards lead through advocacy, whether that be public advocacy, legislative advocacy, or legal advocacy. What is the most important initiative for which you believe the GMSD board should advocate, and why?
Advocacy is one of our primary roles. Each year, the board takes the opportunity to put together a legislative agenda. We have a legislative network with Tennessee School Boards Association that we are part of. They do a lot of study. We as a school board study. Where do we want to go? What do we want to advocate for in the coming legislative session? Some of the things that I think are uppermost in my mind as a school board member is we would oppose any effort by the legislature to diminish local control of our schools. It's exceedingly important as a community that we have control of our schools. We need to support increased BEP funding for our schools. We have limited funding through the BEP formula. We need to increase that funding, but we also need to make sure that the legislature is creating appropriate ratios for teachers, for nurses, for technology and counselors. This hampers us. They fund us at partial ratios, so that is a big part of the BEP funding. We also need to look at advocating against any unfunded mandates. The legislature loves to have school districts incorporate things into their years, incorporate things into their schedules, but they don't always give us the funds to make sure that that happens. And that's extremely important for a district to advocate against. And then also the conversation over limited K through 12 testing. It is a huge topic, I know, here in our community and amongst all of us as parents. It is something we have opposed in the past, we have supported in the past the limitation of K through 12 testing. It is something I think we would support in the future. And lastly, opposing any sort of effort to establish vouchers.
Mr. Curry?
Germantown is represented by 3 state representatives and 2 state senators. So it's important for the board to make sure that we have a relationship with our representative or our elected officials to make sure our interests are represented in Nashville. Testing is a huge concern from parents to where they feel like the kids, and again, being a parent, I see this myself, that our kids are tested too much. But as a district, we're receiving $28 million from the state of Tennessee. So we have to do what the state of Tennessee mandates us to do. But change starts with getting our elected officials to work in our interest. And really, as far as a board, I think we need to encourage our citizens to communicate with their representatives and let the representatives know your level of dissatisfaction with the state of things. Because unless pressure is put on your elected officials in Nashville, nothing's going to change. We saw that happen with the municipal district formation when we were forming our district, that public pressure allowed for change to occur and for us to form our district. But local advocacy is a huge issue. In the March work session for the Board of Education, one of the board members stated, we cannot keep coming to the city with our hand out. So funding, not only from a state level, but from a city level, is a huge issue for this district. And we have to make sure that our needs are known as a district in order for us to be able to get the funding that we have to have from the city in order to operate and to properly house our students.
Thank you. Ms. Rodisel?
I agree that we test way too much, and it is a state law to have them. But I do believe that I agree that we do need to put pressure on our lawmakers, because one of the reasons I'm stepping out of the classroom to do this is because you can only make a change if you want to make a change. And that speaks loudly in Nashville. And I had the privilege of going to Nashville with Leadership Germantown, and just to see the whole process. I'm not a politician at all, I'm an educator, and to see that it only takes a few people to stomp their feet to make a change, that's why I stepped out of my comfort zone to do this, because it takes one person to step out of their comfort zone to make that change. Number 2 is the mandates. We need to protect our instructional time. It is uncanny that we want to grow and we want to achieve and we want to be the best that we can be all across the state of Tennessee, but we still are testing our kids as much as we do. And then the third thing that I would like to see is that the funding. Talking to Mr. Emanuel, our funding comes from the BEP. I think it is a shame that they don't give us our BEP funding until December. Some comes in August, some comes in December, so we have to use reserves to pay bills. I think that's a shame, and we need to change that in the Nashville realm.
Ms. Griffith?
Advocacy is, to me, kind of standing for and supporting something that may or not otherwise be able to do for itself. At the state level, as we've heard, that we are required to do what I perceive to be a very unreasonable amount of testing of our students. The good news is that indeed some of the funding that we receive does come from the people that oversee the BEP that everyone keeps referencing. Recently, there was a formula calculation change, which fortunately allowed us some funds that we did not anticipate. I'm always glad to get money that we don't see coming, and we don't have to get into those reserves. But that constant advocacy against the testing, the state legislature recently had a bill that was solely based on trying to limit the amount of testing that goes on, and our 3rd and 4th graders have seen almost an hour and a half less testing coming up than what they have in the past. I see that as progress, and I'm going to continue to fight for that. Fiscal advocacy is so very important to me, at the local level particularly. If we do not work together with our local administration, being the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, to come up with these funds to, again, not only maintain our existing facilities and education, but allow us to grow so that we can provide the quality that we have become accustomed to and continue to expect, we're going to have to keep having things like professional development subsidized by PTO fundraisers, and I'm not okay with that.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Ms. Griffith. What do you see as the most significant opportunities and challenges facing GMSD over the next 4 years?
4 years. You want to talk about challenges first? Challenges, I think, are going to be exactly what we've continued to talk about, the immediate need. We have to look ahead, but we have to stop reacting. If we don't get in a position to be proactive as we continue to make policies, as we continue to try to understand our fiscal abilities to make these wonderful additions to our facilities and that we would like to do to continue to have the quality that we would like to continue to have or perceive to have, because that's the reputation that we sell and that we want to maintain, we have to realize that we have to look ahead. We've been in a fast pace since the day we started. We don't have to do that. We have to be mindful and thoughtful. We have to look ahead. We have to make plans. It is so very important. On the flip side, I see that as absolutely part of the opportunity. We have been successful in spite of being in haste. So we know that the goodness is here. We have so many wonderful things that are going on in this community as it pertains to these locally run schools. One of the things that I feel like is a great opportunity too is just continuing the community involvement. And community involvement does not just mean parents, it means residents. I love that we as a school district take into consideration people's opinion about textbooks and curriculum. And we want to know and have committees and people talk about foreign language and where we're headed with math at the lower level. That is so important because everybody is part of the greater development of this school district.
Ms. Rudison?
The biggest challenges I feel that we face are having so many laws and rules that in an educational business or that we are in is there's a lot of red tape that goes along with funding. And so without knowing the laws and legal aspects of why we do the things that we do and why we can't fund things with this money and that money, just simply sitting down at a school level looking at the budget would drive anyone crazy, not knowing why you have to roll some money over in a general account and other money not. It's amazing when I went through my admin license program that I had to sit down with the CFO of our district and with the local, or Liz Diaz and the financial secretary. I learned so much that I didn't even know I didn't know, what we could and couldn't do with the funding that we get for each school. But kind of like attendance. If we don't have a perfect attendance or good attendance, that affects funding. If we don't have, like someone referred to earlier, Title I money came to us as a kind of a gift, but it's going to go away. We won't have it forever. We have 6.8% kids with free and reduced lunch or something to that effect. So in a few years, it won't be this windfall of money that we've gotten to use recently. So I think our biggest challenge is finding funding sources outside of what we're getting now and working together with the district and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and finding state funding and grant money to help us fund some things we want to do. Thank you.
Ms. Landers?
Let's talk about challenges. As a school district, funding is always a challenge. Whether the majority of our money comes from BEP, it is one of the reasons we advocate so strongly to expand the funding for BEP. But our funding also comes from Shelby County. A small percentage of our funding comes from federal funds, but funding for a school district is always an issue. Other challenges have to do with the success of our district, and that's growth. We are the victim of our own success, so to speak. So having more students come in, having to look at how we're going to accommodate growth across our district is going to remain a challenge in the next year or two. Over 4 years, what do I see as some of the opportunities that we have? I see us achieving optimal classroom size within the next 4 years, something I know the community wants very much. I also see the establishment of a health sciences academy for the high school. It is something that the superintendent and I have been working on with representatives across the medical community and representatives of the city. It is something that I think as the community, as parents, you should be very excited about, to be able to offer our children incredible shadowing opportunities, in some cases internships, the ability to look at case studies for those students that are really interested in following a health path past high school and into college. And lastly, when I look at the opportunities, the opportunity is there to finish the wing on Houston Middle School to accommodate that growth, to add the new gymnasium. And a long-range wish is that we can add a new gym onto Houston High School. It's very much needed.
Mr. Curry?
Our most significant challenge over the next few years, in my opinion, is going to be the funding aspect of this. In the April 11th working session, Mr. Manuel stated that the new school was going to cost us $2.8 million incrementally that we're not currently planning for. That money has to come from somewhere, and very frank and candid discussions are going to have to occur with our Financial Advisory Commission here in the city to make sure that we're getting the funding that we need. The students are coming, houses are selling, people are moving in each day. Our district is popular. We are a victim of our own success, but we have to adjust. We have to be proactive and not constantly reactive. In business, if you're in a reactive mode, you're going to fail. Successful businesses plan. They plan ahead. What's our plan 5 years from now, 10 years from now? What's Houston Middle, for instance, going to look like 10 years from now? What's it going to look like 20 years from now? I think we have to tackle that head on, and the funding is really going to drive that. As far as opportunities, I feel that as our district expands, a lot of opportunities will come before us. I'm excited about the STEM opportunities that we have. I think STEM is just for the health program, the math, engineering, obviously all the STEM 3D printers. I think as we get into those facets, I think that's huge for our district. I'm excited about our district adopting foreign languages. As I've traveled the world, going to Europe, I encounter people that know 3 and 4 languages off the top of their head, and I see us here in the U.S. struggling with English. So I think as we go along, I think trying to have a more robust curriculum and taking advantage of our parents and our teachers to really maximize the offerings that we have for our district.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Mr. Curry. What could the GMSD board do to improve community engagement and parental involvement in Germantown schools?
Coming from a business background, I really feel like GMSD needs to adopt a customer service mentality. And the reason I say that is this. Our parents who send their kids to GMSD are customers. They have options. They can go to private school, they can homeschool, they can move out of the area entirely. So I think if we treat our parents as customers as we would in a retail business and listen to the concerns and act upon them, I think that would go a long way. From talking to parents as I've campaigned, many parents feel like their voices aren't being listened to. And it may be where they don't have the knowledge of the channels to properly communicate. It could be where they have communicated and not received a response. But if we approach things from a customer service mentality, then you're responsive. If there's a problem, you want to fix it, because at the end of the day, you don't want to lose your customers. In this case, we don't want to lose our students. Every student that we lose out of the district costs the district money. As I've talked about, funding is a huge issue. So we need to retain the students that we have and obviously be an attractive option for those that are in town. If you're a parent and you're sending your kids to private school, I want GMSD to be a viable alternative. That, hey, you know what, they can get a great education at GMSD, and we don't have to send our kids to private school. But that, in the customer service world, the way that's accomplished most of all is through communication. And so we have to be receptive to criticism, and we have to communicate our intentions and make sure that our parents feel like that they're in part of the process and that we are doing the things as a district in order to be responsive and to make the parents at the end of the day sending their kids to school feel like they've made a good decision.
Ms. Landers?
I've spent my career advocating for parent engagement and involvement in schools. It is one of the most important things we can do as a parent is to advocate not only for our own child, but all of the children in our district. We're very blessed here in Germantown. We do have a caring and involved community and wonderfully involved parents. Our PTOs in all of our schools are actively involved. I attend as many meetings as I can get to, and I can tell you how caring and involved and concerned the parents are. They raise money for all of our schools, and yes, even to help assist a school in making sure that their students have certain professional development opportunities. How can we keep that at the forefront of what we're doing and encourage even more? And communication is the key. It's communicating with your school board, but it's also that the board communicates with the community. It's part of that promotion piece. It's going out and speaking to PTO groups, speaking at schools, speaking to different clubs in our community to let them know the plans that we have as a district, to share our strategic plan, to share our vision as a future. Communication will increase what is already a blessing for us here in Germantown, which is amazing community and parent engagement.
Okay. Ms. Griffith?
Community involvement or engagement is what is going to help propel us to the next level of the expansion of this district. I hear again and again how there are still many people, and currently, previously, there are a lot of residents in this community that feel that this city has been divided over education and over school issues and decisions that have been made that have affected families and affected zoning and have just affected the loss of schools, the addition of schools. And that is so much of something that I believe needs to be mended. In order for us to move forward together, we have to work as one community. It can't continue to be the east side, the west side, the north side, the south side. Time is now, and community engagement and involvement is only as good as the ability and the willingness, again, to work together. Communication, as we described, I learned something new when I went to the Riverdale PTO meeting recently, that I wasn't the only parent that didn't know how to use Blooms or Skyward. And we have all these wonderful tools that get communication out there to the existing people that are part of the schools. But not everybody goes to it. You can go to the website. I've been directing people to the website for the past 3 months. If you want to know what's going on, the facts don't lie. Read the minutes. Go to the website. Go to the website. Not everybody goes to the website. Being out there, speaking with people, listening to people, that's going to be how we further the community involvement. Parents are there. We're all there at the school level that have that investment, but the community, the greater community, sometimes they might need an invitation, and I think that we should extend it. Thank you.
Ms. Russell?
I think it's very important to foster partnerships between teachers, administrators, school board, and parents. Everyone up here has said something key is that we sometimes think of ourselves as experts and we're not really listening to the other people. I think we can all work together and if we all just listen to each other and, like we said earlier, respect each other. Some of the things that I just want to brag on is that we have an awesome PTO across the board. We have an awesome support group of volunteers. We have an awesome group of parents that volunteer, provide money, provide services that otherwise some organizations have to pay for. So we are so lucky that we have parent volunteers and people that will step up anytime we ask them. One of the things that people have been mentioning is the trainings for the parents. I agree. I mean, honestly, I have never checked Skyward in my life for any of my children. I just want you to know, and my daughter's a junior. I don't even know how to get on as a parent. I do the old system. You bring your interim home. If you don't do well, that's your tough luck. Okay, so I'm just that one person that doesn't log on. I learned Schoology this year. It's tough, but I'm struggling in the classroom and to try to be a parent. But with all these trainings, we can set up trainings, math nights and Schoology nights and Skyward nights, just to involve the parents. The last thing I was just going to say is some things that I'd like to see would be to create a master calendar for all school activities and fundraisers and engage the parents on helping us make that, because it does drive me crazy that I don't know what I'm doing at ever because there's Red Ribbon Week at one school and not at the other. So I would like to end with saying that we all do need to keep an open dialogue and support each other, listen more and respect more, and create that master calendar, please.
Thank you. The next question will be taken first by Ms. Rudisell. Goal number 4 of the GMSD strategic plan discusses the establishment of 21st century classrooms and schools. What is your vision for how the GMSD school board can prepare its students for our evolving workforce and economy?
As a teacher, I see firsthand with the one-on-one initiative. I think it's great because I also taught college, and I saw what they're going to have in college. I taught it both at the University of Phoenix and Creighton College, and I sold textbooks with technology. So it's moving toward technology. Even if we hate it, that is where it's going. So we need to prepare our students with all of our one-to-one initiatives and all this technology. We hate it because we're not used to it. But when you look outside the realm of Germantown Municipal School District, all colleges are having a component. Any kind of system that they log on to their class, it's kind of like Schoology. It's just called something else. There's different platforms at every college, so we have to prepare them for that. Teaching them how to use Word, how to use PowerPoint, how to use all the technology that's out there. Because we didn't do it, we can't hold our kids back, because that's where the times are going. So I think it's great that we've already established that to middle school. We do a good job even in elementary school with computer skills too. But I think that the more we integrate them now, it's going to help them later on in the future, because that's where jobs are going.
Okay. Ms. Griffith?
The 21st century classroom and learning is so technologically driven, as we're aware. There's also a lot more that goes into that, and I think that the setting, we no longer sit at desks in a row. We sit at tables, or we sit at tables where you can play with your feet, or you can be higher, almost like a bistro table. There are a lot of ways that the different environments and the different 21st century facilities are also part of what they're learning, I feel like, how to be adaptable. Sometimes there are opportunities for us, and we can see them as customizing, I feel like, with this movement towards 21st century learning. And so we take this emphasis on technology, but we also, I was looking at some of the things that the state of Tennessee is in favor of for certain levels of students, and it's almost like a work from home. We're in this world of millennials, and people don't go to the office. It's not an 8-to-5 job. I fully am foreseeing in the future that there will be opportunities for certain students and learners to be learning off-site. Again, to be getting experience more in a work-based area, or even in an experimental area, research area, getting further prepared for their secondary achievement pursuits. So I think the 21st century classrooms and learning, it's not just about having an iPad. I think it's also about learning how to think outside of the classroom. Thank you.
Mr. Curry?
As part of my role as a management trainer, I was also responsible for instructional design, and so this is near and dear to my heart. I dealt with adult education, and it was kicking and screaming, bringing adults to the table to not have written material. Adults, most of us in the room grew up with written material, with textbooks, and so adjusting to the world of paperless and laptops and iPads and just watching my children able to function, it's really amazing. I think our district has really done a good job in adopting technology, and it's not just the computers. It's the classroom. So in my daughter's first grade class, they have different seating options. When I was in school, everyone had their own desk and your own seat, and it was just, that's just the way it was. And so now they get to choose where they want to sit each day. And so I think it's fostering an environment of comfortable learning for the kids to where they walk in and they're able to kind of do their own thing as far as the learning goes. As far as opportunities in the future, I really think that there's an opportunity for us as a district to partner with companies such as mine, FedEx, and other companies that we have here in Memphis to find out what can we do to leverage the things that they're doing. And so I think working with these companies, there could be grants, there could be just vision, but I think there's some benchmarking that can take place using our corporate partners in the Memphis area, and we have quite a few companies that we're really blessed to have here in the area. I think working with them to make sure that we're doing everything we can for when the students, again, walk out of our GMSD schools, that they're able, again, to either go into college or to be prepared for life in the real world.
Ms. Landers?
It is a true statement that our children are digital natives. While most of us are not, our children are. The future is technology. We started our one-to-one blended learning for that exact purpose. So it is keeping and expanding on those opportunities for our children. It is making sure from the earliest years of their schooling that they're familiar with technology. And visiting with the community as I've been walking neighborhoods, I've been asked, what happened to books? The books now are going to be electronic. They can have their books in the classroom, but their books when they come home are going to be on their device. That is going to be the world that they live in. Beyond the technology aspect is the learning environment. Today's workforce is much more mobile, inside and outside of an office building, and we must make sure that our students have those opportunities as well to prepare them for the workforce. Every child learns differently. There's no one way to help a child achieve success. You have to know the children. So in looking toward how we're going to reach 21st century classrooms, we have to keep in mind the different learning styles for our children, equip them with the technology and the environment so that they can expand their learning through different opportunities. STEM is incredibly important to us. Foreign languages, as we've mentioned before, all of these pieces are going to very much factor into what we consider to be 21st century classrooms and schools.
Thank you. The next question will be asked first to Ms. Landers, and I am looking for more than a one-word answer. School boards are a corporate body, meaning the individual board members have no authority over school matters outside a board meeting. How would you be willing to advocate for a board decision that differed from yours, and how?
We are a corporate body, and as I learned long ago, having chaired a number of different boards, the most important thing you can do as a board is have the will to accept the decision of the body. So that when we go forth, whether we agree during the work session or when we voted or not, the decision of the board is what rules. To have the courage to advocate for another position as a board member, yes, and I have. It's important that we do what's best for our children. That must be uppermost in our minds when we make any decision. We must listen to the community, we must look at the data, we must study the facts. But you're not always the only voice in the discussion. You must listen to your fellow board members and arrive at a mutual decision. And it is also having the courage not only of your convictions, but being willing to say, you know, your idea is a better one, and I'm going to support it, and I will advocate for it.
Mr. Curry?
Being on the school board, you're just one of 5 members, so there should be a diversity of opinion and thought, and it's not expected that everyone is going to agree on everything, such is life. I have a personal philosophy that I think you can disagree without being disagreeable. There will be times that I'm overruled in the democratic process on the board where I may advocate for something and I lose. I can't take my toys and go home. I have to respect the will of the majority of the board. I have to be an adult, and I have to go with the will of the board and advocate and not try to undercut or undermine my fellow board members. So I think having mutual respect on the board, building teamwork, having that collaboration and mutual respect, I think we can get to that point. But yes, I fully expect that on the board there will be decisions that I don't agree with, but at the end of the day, I owe it not only to the children, but the people who elected me to do the right thing and respect the will of the board.
Ms. Griffiths?
The board working together to be effective and efficient, those are 2 of my all-time favorite words. I'm going to throw a couple of things out I tell my kids all day, every day when I have the chance. They say, Mom, you always say kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I said, if we could kill 10 birds with 1 stone, I'd be really happy, but I'll take 2. So much of what you talk about as a collective board, that's the best part of having a 5-member board to me, is bringing a variety of voices together that come from different backgrounds. We all bring something to the table, whether it be our experience or our expertise, and listening and being respectful. And it is okay to be self-aware. I promote it all the time. If you can't admit where your shortcomings are and where your opportunities to be better are, then who can? So sometimes your idea may not be the will of everyone, and it may not be the best suggestion. But we have to work together, not only on this board, but as representatives of the greater community. It is tantamount that we take into consideration what's best, not from our personal standpoint, but from the greater good. And I think that everyone here tonight should know that that is really what a board does and is all about. If we get into splitting up in segments and fragments, we will not be successful. Absolutely work together and to support, to advocate for something that you didn't come up with. When we all leave this table, after working hard to come up with something to go out into the world and promote it, you better believe that we'll be a cheerleader and a champion of it. I can assure you I will be.
Ms. Rodisell?
In reading through the Tennessee state guidelines for what constitute a good board member, things that resonated with me were that you had to have a conviction that public education is important and that everything should be student-centered. It also says that you should be loyal to the democratic process. You should have the ability and grace to accept the will of the majority, the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even if it's not popular, professional respect for each other, and the ability to communicate with each other, understanding that it's okay to disagree as long as you've studied the facts and you know what your heart is and you can lay your head down at night on your pillow and be okay with it, even if it's not what everybody wants you to vote on. I told somebody a long time ago, someone said to me, are you a 3 to 2 or are you a 2 to 3? And I looked at somebody and I said, I'm a 1. I'm Robin, and I will always vote on what I believe is right and true for the students. I also know that I can get along with anyone, and that it's okay not to be right. I can say, hey, I'm not right, except to my husband. I'm always right. But with that being said, we are just 5 people coming together for the greater good of this community. We're individuals. We don't need to slander each other. We need to be nice to each other. We need to remember we have to go home to our families at night. So I will respectfully disagree when I have to, but I will respectfully agree when it's for the betterment of the children.
Thank you very much. The next question will go first to Ms. Rittersholm. Assessments are a big part of the accountability process as a means to determine student progress and teacher performance. What is your view of standardized testing in the Tennessee accountability system?
I'm afraid to be honest because I still work. No. Okay, I've said this before. Testing drives me crazy because the student as a whole is not a number. A teacher is not a number. So it's hard for me when these assessments go out. Benchmark assessments are great. I think it's great to look at where the kids are in the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, and the end of the year. I am all for benchmark assessments. But when it comes to assessing a child and giving them a number, or assessing an adult teacher and giving her or him a number, I think it defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here. We're trying to educate and learn from our mistakes, and we only grow when we're in a positive situation. So when you say you're a 1, if you're a teacher and you said, well, I'm defeated, I want to quit teaching, or when you're a student and you're making a 2 instead of a 3 or a 4, if you would just look at the kids' faces when they don't get that 3 proficient or the 4 advanced, it kills my heart to know that these kids don't think they're worth something because they didn't get that 3 or that 4. Every child has a gift and a talent, and we need to focus on the good and not just one score for each child. So in my personal opinion, and as a school board member, I do believe in benchmark assessments because I think they're good. You can use your good teaching methods to structure your lessons. But as far as holding everybody accountable for standardized testing or standardized team approach, ranking teachers, I'm against them.
Ms. Griffith?
Back to maximizing student potential, one of our key points in our district's strategic plan. Indeed, my child, your child, you, me, I'm not a score, they're not a score. The educators who are having to spend so much of their classroom time to prepare these students so that everyone can receive a grade and be held accountable according to how they test or prepared or did their best to prepare someone who may not test well, that's not an indication. That's not a realistic indication of performance on the educator level or at the student level, in my opinion. Some people fly through a test and never have to think twice, but a lot of people do not. It is absolutely important that we maintain our vision of excellence. We do want people that are good test takers and achievers to continue on that path, but we also want to take into consideration that it is very different for other learners. And there is also some opportunity that we can look at for there to be some time spent doing other things. Like I said before, there has been some good advocacy at the state level to reduce state testing. We are fortunate to have a local representative on the 10 Ready Task Force. As we all know, the governing bunch that oversees our state testing has had a little bit of struggles, if you will, over the past couple of years. And I personally don't think that having a standardized test be part of your actual grade going into the last semester of school is unilaterally appropriate for many students, and that is something that I think that we should consider looking at, especially as it pertains to what we are mandated to do.
Okay. Ms. Landers?
Standardized testing does have a function within the district. and assessments are an important piece academically for our teachers to utilize. The previous board supported limiting K through 12 testing. It's something I strongly believe in. While we do need to assess our children, we do need to limit the amount of time that they're testing. I do hope the future board will take the stand of advocating to allow each district across the state to choose its own testing vehicle. Currently, Tennessee Ready, which we all are well aware has been an interesting journey over the last 3 years, is what we use as far as testing in the district. What we would like to see as a district is using the ACT suite of tests. It's the most nationally accepted norming test for 3 through 12th grade. It assesses each student year to year. It would be to our advantage as a district if we could move to that testing vehicle rather than Tennessee Ready. But I think you also have to look at what we do with the whole child, because it is a flawed system if we only depend on testing. We have to be able to, if we are going to create lifelong learners and social responsive citizens, then we need to make sure that our testing is benefiting the students academically and helping us plan for their future as successful adults.
Okay. Mr. Curry?
I have friends that are teachers, and they're very frustrated that their professional assessment is based on the results of one test on one day. I think it's very ridiculous, quite frankly, that the teachers are put in that situation, because there's so many external factors that go in to a child coming in to take a test. Did they get a good meal the night before? Did they sleep well? And you, as a teacher, you're basically on pins and needles to hope that they take the test and take it well. But unfortunately, that's the system that we're dealt, right? So again, as I mentioned earlier, the change has to start in Nashville. And so we, as a community, as residents, we have to say enough. I agree with benchmark testing. It's great for me to see my children and how they're progressing along in school throughout the semester, so I get a good idea as a parent how they're doing, and if there are things that we need to do at home to supplement, or if there's a need to talk to the teacher to figure out what we need to do different, I'm all for that. But the standardized testing is just ridiculous. But again, unless there's an outcry from the people, from you as the citizen, to let our officials know that, hey, we've got to do better. Nothing's going to change. And so I think advocacy from the board's part to pull the levers that we're able to pull with our elected representatives, the Tennessee School Board Association, those are things that we can do. But ultimately, you as a community, you have to say enough and make it known that we're not going to accept this for our kids any longer.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Mr. Curry. What would you do as a member of the Germantown Municipal School Board to promote arts education, and how would you ensure such programs are adequately funded?
So arts, that's part of a well-rounded student. And so again, we can't just focus on algebra and chemistry. The arts are a vital part of a well-rounded education. In my education experience, I was in the choir in high school and really gained a lot of that experience. I was never good in art class. Beside my stick figures, that did not go well. But I think having a well-rounded arts program really can appeal to different interests from each student. Again, if we're looking holistically, having at least an exposure to the arts is something that I think benefits us all. And again, we may decide that as a student, maybe my kids are better with instruments than singing, or maybe they're better painters than musicians. But I think if we have programs that are basically are enough of a course offering to meet the needs of all the students, I think we all win. And then we have students as they leave GMSD, they're more well-rounded, better cultured, and they're able to enjoy those things in life. We were just recently gifted with a sizable donation to our district, not only for the athletics, but also for the arts. And so I think reaching out to people that would fund us in the district to make sure that we're able to offer these programs, I think it's something we're going to have to do because, as I've mentioned before, funding is a challenge. So if we have residents of the community that are willing to contribute to the cause for the arts, I think that's something that we should leverage and take full advantage of to make sure that we have good offerings for all the students.
Ms. Landers?
I think we can all agree that offering arts education does help create a well-rounded education for our children. We're fortunate in the district to have a wealth of educational offerings for our children from kindergarten through the 12th grade. Partnering with our community is vital if we are to continue offering what we do, whether it's through funding or through having guest lecturers, guest speakers, teachers in the classroom to help make presentations. We've partnered with GPAC and will continue to. We've partnered with other businesses to bring in those vital funds. We will be looking at redoing the stage, the performance stage, the orchestra pit, the band area at Houston High School through the most recent donation from the community, from the city, and from the district, which has been a wonderful partnership and something that I think in the future can serve us well in other models to improve our school district. Education in the arts is vital. As someone who spends her spare time endeavoring to be a painter, I know what it means to me, but it also helps academically in other subject areas for our students as well, whether it be music or art, they all translate academically. So the support of the community in the funding aspect and in other aspects is going to be vital to continue the wonderful program that we've established and to expand those offerings.
Ms. Griffith?
I love art, and I'm not an artist. Whether it be visual arts or fine arts, I think it seems to be a consensus that we would all state that it's absolutely important that we have these offerings to have a well-rounded education that's allowed and provided in our system. Back to the funding. That's very important when you're having mobile art on a cart, as they call it. I said, what did you say? They said, art on a cart. It comes to us. Okay, I gotcha. So we're having mobile art, and we're having teachers in between schools that are very, very talented, wonderful teachers. And we have this great thing, back to the technology, as it pertains to art education, Artsonia, where you too can have, at your digital leisure, your child's artwork right there for the whole world to see and for you to share and purchase. I think that it is very important to not only continue and foster visual and fine arts. I think that it is very, very important that we also work again on the funding so that we can have the proper facilities. It was brought to my attention in a meeting at the Houston Middle School last week that there's some art meeting in the science lab, and that goes back to our facilities and the need for expansion, and not in 10 years, not in 20 years, now. Arts are so important, and I would like to continue to foster and further them, but I'd also like a place for them to reside. I think that it helps in all learning facets, and I would really like to continue to support them. Thank you.
Ms. Russell?
Being here for 20 years and seeing the progression of our arts, it is amazing how many great teachers we have out there, and I give them kudos for everything they do. I was fortunate to be a member of the Germantown Arts Alliance, and it was sad to see it go, but we did pass our grants on to the GPAC. So with that money that they are raising, we should be able to, my vision is to get free field trips to GPAC, and that's something I'd like to be if I got on the school board, I would like to do a liaison saying, hey, we need free field trips. It already costs us money to get a bus to get over there, so now let's have grants to pay for all the kids to see all the performances. And it's right in our backyard. Another thing that we're doing a great job with digital art. It's now in the schools. The one thing that's kind of disappointing is that Houston Middle does not have a theater department, and some of the kids really want to be in the theater department, yet they have to go to Farmington to be, and some of them don't want to do it because that's an elementary school. So I'd like to see more theater opportunities at Houston Middle. And then the last thing is with fixing up our theater department. I know we're raising money right now at the high school, and I think if you've ever seen a production at Farmington or Riverdale or Houston High, you would see why it's very important to fund all those programs, because it is amazing when those kids and those people go all out for these productions. So I'm totally in support of bringing more money to the table if we can get the funding to expand all of our opportunities at all schools, especially the new school that's coming up too.
Thank you. The next question will be asked first to Ms. Rodisholm. What relevant skills or experiences will you bring to the role of school board member, and how will these attributes make you a successful board member?
First of all, I think the attributes that I would bring to a table, that I'm very outgoing, I get along with anybody, and even if I disagree with you, I'm still going to be your friend. The second thing is being an educator. I've seen all realms of education. I've been a teacher at an elementary school here in Germantown, at a middle school in Germantown, and at a college here in Memphis. So I've seen the progression of what the students need in order to get where they're going. So when we start talking about policies, I've been in the trenches. I've seen the inner workings of how each school in this district works internally. I also have the opportunity that I've been to all the schools and met with all the PTOs also just in the past 5 years, making those connections with the parents too. What I bring to the table is relationship building and the knowledge of what's inside the school, not just outside the school. And the last thing I bring to the table is this: I am a parent. I do see my kids went through Dogwood, now they're at Houston Middle, and my daughter's at the high school. So there are things that I'd like to see fixed too. And as a parent, as a school teacher, not everything is always great, and you can see it from the outside, but when you see it from the inside, you really want to step out of your comfort zone and make a difference, and that's why I'm running for school board this year.
Ms. Griffith?
So much of my skill set is indeed business-based. I also feel that after 5 years almost of our school district, it's very, very important that we look from the outside in. Fresh perspective is important, as we talked about the strategic plan and the adjusting of it as the needs present themselves. As a stakeholder, as a resident, I'd like to consider it from that perspective. As a parent who has students in the system, I would like to also look at it from that perspective. I think that there are a variety of ways that we can take our skills, mine actually being budget management. I personally, as I mentioned, I oversee and manage not only marketing agencies that represent my company. I also deal with the day-to-day budgets of multi-million dollars for sales and marketing. There is so much of what I do that is part of negotiating contracts and representing people's interests, not my own. I will be impartial. That is what I'm known for. They said, open-minded and level-headed, you can be both. That is absolutely something that I can do. That is something I will do because I feel so strongly about representing the will of this community and on the school children and school administrators and leaders and educators that have been sacrificing up to this point. We have done so many wonderful things, but it's been at a cost. And I feel like my business experience, fighting for funding, advocating for everyone at every level is going to be absolutely something that I bring to this board and with a fresh perspective.
Mr. Curry?
I'm an eager learner. I will be the first to admit I have not spent a lifetime in public education. However, that's not what's required for this position. I'm a listener. My wife would disagree with that, but I am a listener. And I learn through listening. I learn through talking to people. I learn what their concerns are, what the issues are, and I'm able to kind of store that in the database. What I do bring is a lifetime of business and critical thinking. I would not be able to function in my job if I did not have the skills to be able to manage a business, to communicate, to collaborate. Being in my job for 22 years, I've picked up a lot along the way, but the one thing that I do bring to the table that I feel there's a very good skill set of mine, I'm very process driven. And if there's a system issue, what's wrong with the system, and let's fix the system and not let issues go on. And as a manager, as an instructor, and in my current role, that's one of the things you look at. When I go into a facility in a foreign country, I go in and I look and I take stock of the situation and see what's the state here, and then what do we need to do to fix it to get things going. I've done that my whole career. In this position, though, we have a $60 million budget. People of the city need to understand, we have a $60 million budget, and right now on the board, we have no one with relative business experience. And I think that the city can't take that for granted, and they can't take that lightly. So I think having the skills to be able to ask questions, to listen, and to implement critical thinking, I think that's something that I definitely can bring to the table in this role.
Ms. Landers?
I bring to the role of the school board 20-plus years of advocacy at both the national and the state level, extensive leadership experience at the board level and leadership service, proven committee leadership. I've been a trained facilitator, and I've partaken in training development. I'm a team builder. I believe in developing a team to its fullest potential, and I strive always to be a consensus builder. I bring to this nonprofit business management, having led an association of 5 million plus members with a 60-member staff and a multi-million-dollar budget. Capital investment management experience, as well as the development of nonprofit management training for others. I've developed budgets, and I've assisted in budget execution as well. I have the proven ability to lead a team successfully, but most of all, I'm a leader who listens and seeks solutions.
Thank you. The next question will be answered first by Ms. Landers. If a parent or a district employee comes to you with an issue or complaint, how should you respond? What do you believe to be your role as a school board member in resolving that issue?
When a complaint is brought to you, whether by a parent or a district employee, as a school board member, your first job is to listen and to ask questions, to make sure that you get all of the information necessary to move forward. And then to sit and reflect on the information given and where to move next. Is this something, a concern you should be taking to the superintendent? If it is a district employee or even if it's a parent, that is your first line to seek more information and solutions, is to go to the superintendent. It's why that relationship is so very important, the ability to communicate with your superintendent. I can tell you as a board member, you get many concerns expressed to you. You answer them through email, you answer them in the grocery store, and you answer them on the telephone. You seek your solutions by going to the superintendent, sharing your concerns, asking how the solution can be reached. You circle back around with the people who have contacted you, and you share that information as best you can. But most importantly, you listen.
Mr. Curry?
As I mentioned earlier, if our district adopts a customer service mentality, then you will be motivated to come up with a solution. In my line of work, I'm very big on chain of command. Now, I don't know the chain of command for GMSD on how an issue is solved. If the chain of command is that everything goes to Mr. Manuel, then that would be the chain of command. If that's not the procedure, then you listen, and let's say there's an issue at Riverdale. All right, well, then you would ask, all right, have you talked to anyone at Riverdale? Because I can tell you, being in management, the worst thing that you can have happen to you is to have stuff go over your head and then come down to you and you've not had a chance to address it. When you have your boss's boss asking you questions, that's the absolute worst thing in the world, and I abhor that. But it depends on the policy that, in this case, that Mr. Manuel would ask for. But we need to make sure that we follow the chain of command and make sure that we're listening and then ultimately getting a solution. Now, as we've discussed earlier, if, let's say, the procedure is to go to Mr. Manuel, then I think we as board members owe it to follow up to say, did we get a solution to this issue, and then to follow back up with whoever asked the question to make sure that their concerns have been addressed and that we're reaching the solution that's desired by all parties.
Okay. Ms. Griffith?
Receiving what may be perceived as a complaint, making sure that the person who has taken the time to offer up this concern or issue is not felt to be on the defense, I think is crucial. I think that if someone is willing to share something, especially if it personally is affecting them and their family, that you need to keep an open ear and an open mind. Something as a board member that we cannot do is make any promises about how that situation may be addressed or handled. That's not within our scope, but we do listen. Again, I think it's so important for people to be encouraged to express their issues and concerns and to ask questions, not belittled or undermined, felt welcome. If we receive a complaint, I believe, based on what I have done and learned recently, that the direct line of communication goes straight to the head of the company. And that is something that is very important back to the board and superintendent role that has to be fostered, because every time we hear something, we can't immediately go on defense. We don't want to put people on defense that have come out and expressed themselves to us in the same way that we don't want to respond that way. I think receiving information that is presented to us with an opportunity of improvement or a concern that may have to do with something educational or even safety is crucial. We have to listen, we have to tell the appropriate person, and we have to work towards a solution. And we also have to make sure that the person understands that we appreciate them coming to us. To the customer mentality, as Brian mentioned, I think that receiving a complaint is oftentimes our best opportunity to do better.
Ms. Rudisell?
Policy at Houston Middle and most of the schools in the district are chain of command, like Brian said. Your first line of defense is to contact the teacher. Make sure you ask the teacher what happened. Make sure, because if they come to me with a complaint, I'm going to listen first. I'm just going to I want to hear what you have to say. Second of all, I'm going to first ask, have you talked to the teacher? And then if they said, yes, I've talked to the teacher, and then I'm going to ask, have you talked to the principal? And then if they say, yes, I've talked to the principal, then as a school board member, I have to remember that my day-to-day job is to be a support system and listen and hear concerns, but I also have to remember that the day-to-day operations go to Mr. Manuel. So if they've gone to the teacher, if they've gone to the principal and still have not gotten the answer they like, and it has happened in this district, then it is fair enough for them to go to the next line of command. I've offered, have you gone to Chauncey Bland? Have you gone to Meredith Parks? If it's student services, or if it's academic, go to the next line of defense. If it's special ed, have you talked to Sarah Huffman? Eventually, it will, if they don't get the answer they're looking for, they should be able to talk to Jason Manuel, because he's very approachable. And I wouldn't mind making that connection with Jason if they said yes to all the answers.
Thank you. The next question will go first to Ms. Rudisell. Effective school boards are accountable to all the stakeholders of the district. What are the elements of district accountability that school boards must pursue to achieve a world-class education?
I think we've talked about this earlier a lot, about the respect. School board members have a job to do. They are supposed to support the district and the people who work within the district. Yet they also have to support the people that elect us, the community and the parents. And actually the community stakeholders, as in the people who are paying taxes, whether they're grandparents or whether they're just neighbors who have no children in the school. We owe it to them too, to be accountable for our actions. So as far as accountability as a school board member, I think that first and foremost, we have to listen, be respectful, communicate often, communicate with the right people, and meaning if it has to do with funding, find the funding source. If it has to do with policy, talk with the superintendent. Or if it has to be changing a law, go to Nashville and change the law. But accountability starts at home too. I think we as role models, as parents, I'm accountable to my own children. And I always tell parents, you are your child's own advocate. If you don't like how something is going, you need to stand up and tell somebody. So accountability starts at all levels, our parents, our community, our teachers, administrators, the school board. And I believe that with a good school board, that being accountable to your constituents and making sure you listen and respect and hear their concerns.
Ms. Griffith?
Accountability is a big part of my platform. I think that it is crucial that you're accountable for yourself. We all have to have that bit of self-awareness and representation personally, and that kind of where it all begins. Accountable to the board members that you will serve with. Back to the working role of us being a collective body of unique personalities and trying to work towards a common goal. Accountable to the most important part of why we're all here, the students, the staff, the educators that make up this school district. They're counting on us to oversee policy and to advocate for them at all levels, and we're absolutely accountable to them, and they should expect that. And I expect to do that. Accountability is also something that is not easy for all to come by. And I think that there are people that we have to work with, and that there's going to be some level of expectation that maybe has not been met. And holding people accountable and demanding some accountability from some of the funding parties and the potential funding parties are going to be some things that we have to have those hard conversations. The time is now, and we need to look at how we can do some budget analyzing to find some of the resources that we need immediately. So advocating not only educationally as we grow our district and want to have extensive offerings and add to our mix as far as that goes and curriculum, but also advocating for the financial needs of how we see that we're going to get those facilities updated and how we're going to bring those new things to the table educationally.
Mr. Curry?
I had a senior manager at work tell me one time, Brian, don't ever confuse effort with results. And so our stakeholders at the end of the day are looking for results. Out on the campaign trail, I talked to many residents who don't have kids in the school, or they send their kids to private school, but they are paying taxes, but they are not utilizing our services. And so we owe it to them, as well as the parents who are sending their kids to GMSD, to make good decisions and to make sure that we are producing results for this district. Now, that means, that could be measured in a variety of different ways. Some people would measure it via test scores, which we've already discussed. Some would measure it if are we in the news for good reasons. They would say, do we feel like our kids get a good quality education at the school? But we as a board have to set the standard and not only be accountable to our voters, but also be accountable to each other and make sure we're holding each other accountable for decision making in order to be able to make sure we're making the best decisions for our parents, our teachers, and our students.
Ms. Landers?
We are accountable to those who have elected us, to the broader community, and to those parents of the children that we serve. We need to always take a multifaceted approach to engage our stakeholders. We must ensure that our communication is two-way. We must make sure that our communications go to the community, but that we are always listening to your voice, your questions are asked, your concerns are addressed. It is important that the community is involved in our district if we are to be successful. How we do that currently and in the future will be to have the community represented on the multitude of district committees that we put together, whether it's for site selection of the new school or for the design of the new school or many of the future endeavors that we'll do. But it's also through holding public forums to give you a voice into the process. It's through the surveys we put online asking you to share with us your concerns or your ideas. We must engage the community in the decisions we make. It is vital if we are to continue the long-term success of this district that we listen and represent your voice.
Thank you. I'm going to ask my timekeepers to set the time for this last question as 1 minute. And I'm asking, and we'll begin with Ms. Landers, why are school boards important?
School boards are important. School boards are important to run, to supervise, and oversee the running of the district. We hire but one employee, the superintendent. By state law, school boards, local education associations are put in place to ensure that our educational system is well run. We create the policies, we plan the vision, we promote the district.
Mr. Curry?
The board represents the will of the people. So the board employs one person, the superintendent, but the citizens of the city, they are able to give their pleasure or displeasure with how they vote for the Board of Education. If the citizens of the city do not feel that the school system is going in the direction that they desire, they have the ability every 2 years to make their voices heard and to make a change if so desired. So I think as a board, we have to be the voice of the people and to promote education within our city and making sure that we are doing right by our students, educators, and students, and just really to cheer them on and to, again, kind of be the middleman between the voter and the education system.
Ms. Griffith?
The board doesn't make, when I say doesn't make decisions, we don't come up with all of everything. We adopt it when it's presented to us, because if we do what we say we're going to do in our strategic plan, we already have the right people in place, and they are giving good guidance, and they are contributing to the betterment of this district in the positions that they were hired in, and looking forward to moving together. And so the board ultimately adopts policy. We encourage listening to the community. Part of what we do is, if we don't directly come up with it, we accept it. We accept it as a representative of those who have elected us. So being, again, as part of an advocate group that comes from the outside in, I think it's important that we keep that in mind, what the board's role actually is and what it is not.
Ms. Rudisell?
Many of you have heard tonight that the board has the position to help make policy, plan, and promote the district, and that we only have one employee. More importantly, the board has one focus, and it's student-centered. The vision says we're excellent always. We need to maintain that. We also need to make sure that we maintain the mission we set when we first started, that we're preparing, inspiring, empowering students to be lifelong learners and socially responsible. It is our duty as board members to make sure that our vision and mission is carried out at all times. Thank you.
We now will move to closing statements by the candidates. Once again, the order was determined by a flip of the coin at a meeting a couple of weeks ago. Our first closing statement will come from Brian Curry.
This election comes down to a choice. Do we stay the same, or do we dare to be better? Our district has a $60 million budget and is one of the largest businesses in the area in terms of budget and the number of employees. Given that, we must have a strong business perspective on the board. In 2017, my opponent stated, "We don't ever want to put our aldermen, our funding body, in a position of having to say no to something to do with our schools." Let me be unequivocally clear. If I'm on the board, I will never place the feelings of the aldermen over the interest of our students, teachers, and parents. With courage and conviction, I will advocate for every dollar and work to bring our children out of the bottom 16% of funding in the state. And yes, that's correct. We are in the bottom 16% of funding in the state of Tennessee. As your board member, I will use my business experience to work to bring this board together, for us to be a strong board with a strong voice to unite this community, for us to achieve amazing things. If you dare to be better, I ask for your support and your vote in November. Thank you.
Betsy Landers.
For more than 20 years, I've been an active advocate for improved public education, the safety and well-being of our children, and parent involvement in education. I bring to the school board experienced leadership, nonprofit business management, and development. I have the knowledge and the perspective to make decisions for our children. All 5,993 students in our district are our children. And as a board member, it is my responsibility to visit our schools to ensure that our decisions are having a positive impact on our students. Our school district has accomplished much in the last 4 short years, but to maintain excellence and to have the school system that our children deserve, we must keep our focus on the future. If we are to move forward and ensure the longevity of GMSD's success, we have to move forward academically, develop and support our teachers, and establish 21st century classrooms and schools while maintaining strong financial responsibility. We are blessed in Germantown. We have engaged students, involved parents, and a caring community. And as a district, we have incredible staff and highly qualified teachers, all with the ability and the commitment to guide our children through their kindergarten years to high school graduation and beyond. With knowledgeable and experienced leadership, we can accomplish excellence always. I serve as your chair of your school board, and it is with deep respect that I ask for your vote on November 6th to continue serving the children we love.
Robin Rudisil.
In closing tonight, I just want to let everyone know how much I love Germantown. I chose to live here and to teach here because I knew from my own experience how great the schools were. I'm not a politician, I'm an educator. My whole life has been dedicated to education. By choosing me as your representative on the school board, you'll be getting a teacher who always puts children first, a parent who's always actively involved in what's going on in the schools, and a servant leader whose heart is always in the right place. I want to serve on the school board to help bring our community together. The vision excellence always resonates with me, and that we are truly blessed in this town because we have engaged students, involved parents, and very qualified teachers. My goals as a school board member will be to support fair and equal capital improvements for new and existing schools, help strengthen a safe school climate and environment for all students, foster better communication between parents and school personnel, encourage the implementation of trade skill classes for students who are not college bound, promote programs for special education students to have more job-related activities. I promise to be a garden of tax dollars and build relationships with people at the city, county, and state levels to find more funding sources for our schools, and I'll remain positive and advocate for our district to increase instructional time and reduce testing time. It would be my honor to serve this community as the next Germantown Municipal School District Position Number 4 School Board member. I humbly ask for your vote.
Angela Griffith.
We are at a pivotal time in our community and our district. Now more than ever, our school board needs strong leadership. All residents of Germantown must be represented. And again, as someone who was raised here and understands the rich history and also is invested as a parent in the community schools, I understand the benefit of having locally run schools. Knowing how we got here, though, only helps us up to this point. The future is now. Where are we headed? How are we going to get there? As your school board member, I will bring my business experience of managing people, budgets, and negotiating contracts with me as my skill set. I will be a variety of voices on this board so that we all have different parts of what, as my dad likes to say, we all bring something unique and special to the party because everyone is unique and different. From being on the outside of the district coming in, I think that a fresh perspective is very crucial to moving forward. We know where we've been, but where are we going? People outside the district want to be part of that, and I think fostering that is so important. My platform is two-pronged, and it's basically advocacy and accountability, two things we've touched on tonight. I will do both with my whole heart and my head because, again, you can do both. I kindly ask for your consideration, Angela Rickman Griffith, Germantown Municipal School District, Position 4.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you all for coming. We also want to thank Leadership Germantown Alumni Association putting on this great event. Please vote. Encourage everyone to vote. This is our most sacred right as a citizen. We must vote. Please get out there and advocate for those who you believe in.
Let's have a round of applause for our moderator and participants. Well done. Very well done. And this event was a huge success, not because of me, but because of an amazing group of volunteers and a committee that is just intelligent and hardworking and had my back. So I want to also extend my thanks to my committee and my amazing volunteers. If you would do that, please. Thank you. While the candidates and Mr. Pickler gather in the center for a photo that I plan to use on the LGAA webpage, if everyone's amenable to that, I would like to thank Mr. Pickler on behalf of LGAA. I've known David for several years, and in thinking what could we do, what could we give the man who has just about everything, I know that you and I have a very special place in our heart for JDRF. So on behalf of LGAA, to thank you tonight, we will be donating $100 to JDRF in your name. Thank you.